Hi, everybody. This is the Dr. Ardis Show. I'm your host, Dr. Brian Ardis. I hope you've had a great week, great weekend prior, and we're so excited to spend time with you today. Today's episode, we're going to be educating you and all your audiences at home. Share it far and wide with anybody you know who might be struggling with HIV or AIDS. You might want to know this stuff even if you don't know somebody or you yourself aren't struggling with that. I know it's not the majority of the world that struggles with this condition. However, December 1st of this month and every month of this, I'm sorry, every year of December, December 1st is marked as World AIDS Day. I don't know what there's to celebrate this condition, but I guess we should at least recognize it's creating havoc for a lot of people's lives. So stick around. This entire show is going to be me destroying the narrative of HIV and AIDS. So for all of you at home, I hope you enjoy this. It's going to be a mixture of a research study, some basics from the CDC, and then my presentation from Healing for the Ages, our conference we held in September in Dallas, Texas, where I actually showed the whole world what a very simple disclosed antidote could possibly be for HIV. All right, we'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back, everybody. I'm your host, Dr. Brian Ardis. This is the Dr. Ardis Show, and this is going to be everything about World AIDS Day, which is December 1st of every given year. This is 2023. All right, so I'm excited to spend some time with you here. Our sponsors for this show are going to be mypillow.com. Go to mypillow.com. You're still a couple weeks before Christmas. If you need any items for your home, please use the discount code DOCTOR, D-O-C-T-O-R. It'll save additional percentages off whatever you have selected for your home. My favorite thing are their towels, personally, and I use them every single day. All right, but they have tons of products. And then I would also want to give a shout out to Brighteon.tv, Mike Adams and his platform and team. Go to brighteonstore.com, shop their items there, and use the discount code DOCTOR, D-O-C-T-O-R, to help support us in what we're trying to do here, to help save you humanity in every effort and selling my body. That's all I'm trying to do. Use the discount code DOCTOR at brighteonstore.com or brighteon.tv. brighteonstore.com. And then also graithcare.com. For any assistance from me personally or the advocates at graithcare.com, go to graithcare.com. It's the name Grace and Faith merged together to form the word graithcare.com. There's the opportunity for advocacy to help you, coach you to get off of drugs and prescription drugs and your dependence on them, how to actually reclaim your health all naturally, and then support for those in hospitals or any victims going forward. It doesn't matter who you are. You need to have an advocate. That's who they're there for. So contact graithcare.com today. Use my last name, ARDIS, for 10% off any of their advocacy work. And there is an option called AAA where I do weekly video consults for a 3 to 6 month plan of action to help you recover your health if you want my personal input. All right. So it is currently the month of December 2023, a little bit past December 1st, obviously. But December 1st is World AIDS Day. All right, so let's talk about AIDS. I'm going to discuss some and share some things with you about AIDS. And if I have time in the second segment, I may have everything I need to talk about AIDS and HIV in this first segment. In the second segment, I may go into something I'm going to be actually presenting at the Reawaken Tour. So if you already saw it last weekend, this is actually going to be somewhat of a review of some of that information if I have time to get to it. And I think it's just very important that people understand the limitations of the medical profession so many of you and so many of your loved ones have still with the medical profession and their ability to help us conquer our symptoms and diseases, which they have no ability to do. And I'm going to take you through some of that reality here in this segment. But let's first talk about HIV and AIDS, since it is actually World AIDS Day. December 1st, 2023. All right, so I'm going to share my screen here. All right, so let's look at the CDC. So here's the CDC, Centers for Disease Control, and their basics on the statistics related to HIV. All right, so this is titled New HIV Diagnosis and People with Diagnosed HIV in the U.S. and Dependent Areas by Area of Residence. Now, as you'll see here, there's a legend, tells you where it is the most infected people in the United States of America are who are carrying HIV. The darkest green areas you would see would be California, Texas, New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Illinois, Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, North Carolina, and Virginia. So you can see those there in green. Those are going to be the ones with the highest amounts of diagnosed HIV. new diagnosis in the year 2021. How many people receive an HIV diagnosis each year in the United States and those 6 dependent areas? 36,136 people, it states here, in 2021 were diagnosed in the United States in those dependent areas. The annual number of new diagnoses decreased 7% from 2017 to 2021. Well, that's great. Except if you remember in 20 and 2021, there were lockdowns. Hospitals weren't open for outpatient care. Many clinics were closed. So I guarantee you they weren't able to test people for HIV. There weren't as many people visiting doctors during 2020 and 2021 outside of hospitals for COVID. So I guarantee you the rates look like they've gone down because of that, most likely. So how many people live in the United States with HIV? An estimated 1.2 million people in the United States have had HIV in the end of 2021, the most recent year for which this information is available. Of those people, about 87% knew they had HIV. Let's just keep on going with HIV, which leads to AIDS. HIV, by the way, stands for human immunodeficiency virus, HIV. All right. So how does HIV affect different groups of people? This might be interesting for some of you. In 2021, male-to-male sexual contact accounted for 67%. That's 24,000 cases of all new HIV diagnoses in the U.S. and dependent areas. In the same year, heterosexual contact accounted for 22% of all HIV diagnoses. So they're telling you by far it is male-to-male homosexual activity. You see there on the bar graph, male-to-male sexual contact represents 67%. You can see it here. 24,000, heterosexual 8,000, injection drug use was only 2,000, male-to-male sexual contact and injecting each other with drugs, 1,375. Then they discuss there's a racial disparity between HIV-infected people. They tell you over here it's black and African Americans who are making up 40% of all new cases for 2021 with HIV. Now, this isn't odd because they continually tell you that blacks or African Americans are still the most infected people in the entire country from the beginning. Then you'll see the second highest is Hispanic or Latinos. The third most likely and diagnosed are those who are white. And then you have multiracial, Asian. You see the numbers keep going down from there. Primarily, it's blacks and Hispanics and whites that make up the majority, almost 98% of all of them. That might be important to know. What about new HIV diagnoses since 2021, which is the last year in which they collected this data? Gay and bisexual men are the population most affected by HIV. So now you've got them splitting it up between races. Black, African American, male-to-male sexual contact makes up 8,883. It's the largest group. Hispanics or Latinos who have shared sexual contact homosexually, 8,000. White men who are doing sex with each other, represents 5,700 cases. Black African American women, heterosexual contact, 3,208. Black African American men, heterosexual contact, 1,400. Hispanic and Latino, 1,000. White women, 1,000 roughly, 962. Are some regions of the United States more affected by HIV than others? Well, look at it. It looks like the South has risen again. The South is winning. Whatever these numbers represent, 387.9, 27.26 in the West, 187 in the Midwest, Northeast, 411. Well, actually, I guess it wasn't the South that won. It's the Northeast that wins, 411.4. Now, you have to understand the majority of people live in New York and Los Angeles in this country. So it's not surprising to see New York would have a whole lot of these. These are the statistics currently on HIV. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a presentation I did for Healing for the Ages. And the reason why I'm going to do this before I show you research studies on HIV is because I want to shed some light on the hope correlated with HIV and what we know. All right, so what I learned in the last 2 years was nothing short of insane to me. I couldn't believe it. So let me show you what I shared at our Healing for the Ages conference if you weren't able to attend. All right, so the entire title of this part of my presentation was called Testing for and Beating Their Venom-Laced Bioweapons. I was the final presenter at the Healing for the Ages conference. If you haven't had it, you need to go download it. All right, this is our disclaimer. Time Magazine, January 11th, 1999. They listed the future of medicine, January 11th, 1999. Bottom right-hand corner reads how genetic engineering will change us in the next century. So they are attempting to Look at the illustration. They're trying to take your DNA and make half of your DNA into a serpent's DNA. That is the future of medicine. Why in the world do we need to be changed? Read that subtitle again. How genetic engineering will change us in the next century. Well, for all you Christians out there who believe that God is all knowing and all powerful, do you still believe he got it right the first time, or do you think he screwed up? I mean, supposedly you were made in the image of God. Do you believe God needs to be changed? Because science is telling you here, Time Magazine, that you need to be changed, that I need to be changed. Do you believe them? Do you believe science that you need to be changed? All right. Well, you can answer that for yourself. All right. The Wall Street Journal. Remember, this is all about HIV and AIDS. The Wall Street Journal. This is February of 2020. Title of their article reads, Virus, quotes, the spread of a Latin term for poison. Well, let's go into their document here. It actually says this. I've got the quote in blue. The English word virus is based on a Latin word for poisonous secretion. Do you know what animals secrete poisons? And early on, it often kept to its original meaning of venom. Well, that's interesting. Did you know that viruses were venoms? All right, now this is a Latin English dictionary. Somebody brought me at the Red Pill Expo with G. Edward Griffin. You can see the dates in there. It is the copyrighted 1987. This is a Latin and English dictionary. So the first half is English, the second half is Latin. Look at this. Somebody brought me this book to show me this, and I took a picture. The word virus in 1987 in our Latin and English dictionary reads, virus is a slimy liquid or slime or a poison, especially of snakes, otherwise known as venom, or any harsh taste or smell. Isn't that interesting? How many of you knew that viruses meant venom? And it was published in our English dictionaries up until 1987, at least. All right, now if you go look at poison, where you see the Latin word for virus on the right, shows poison, especially of snakes. If you go to the English side of the same dictionary, it reads poison in English means venom, virus, or toxicum. So a virus just means a poison. It is not some living germ floating around the world causing you to be sick. It is a poison. So a poison is something man does to man. They poison man, right? So anyway, just wanted you to see that. All right, so this is where we're going to start. NIH, May of 2023. Many of you have already seen this article, but we're going to rehash this. SARS-CoV-2 spike protein ectodomain targets alpha-7 nicotine receptors. They're stating the spike proteins of COVID, the virus, target nicotine receptors. And in blue, it reads the SARS-CoV-2 virus's glycoprotein. That's a fancy word for sugar protein, another word for spike protein. The SARS-CoV-2 spike protein contains a neurotoxic-like region that has sequence similarities to these three things: the rabies virus and the HIV's spike proteins, as well as to snake venom neurotoxins, which interact with nicotine receptors via this region. So I'm glad they're admitting it, the NIH, this year, that there is snake venom neurotoxins and similarity to the spike proteins of HIV's spike protein and rabies spike protein. Now, according to geneticists in China in January of 2020, what did they publish? In summary, the results derived from our evolutionary analysis, their DNA expert analysis. Those findings suggest that 2019 novel coronavirus has most similar genetic information with bat coronaviruses and has most similar codon usage bias with snake. Well, what does most similar codon usage bias mean? Here's from the NIH itself. Let's read in blue what codon usage bias means. Codon usage bias in blue reflects the origin, mutation patterns, and evolution of the species or genes. All right, great. Well, it reads here that a codon usage bias reflects the origin. So if you go back to the summary of the Chinese researchers who did DNA analysis in January of 2020, they said it has most similar codon usage bias with snake. You see it right there? I'm going to actually cut out the words codon usage bias and supply it with the NIH's definition of the word origin. So let's read it again. So there you see it, origin. In summary, results derived from our evolutionary analysis suggest that the 2019 novel coronavirus has most similar genetic information with bat coronaviruses and has most similar origin with snakes. And this is the graph out of their chart. You see far left is the crate snake. That's the most likely origin of COVID per their diagnosis and DNA testing. The second most likely origin of COVID was the king cobra. Their DNA analysis, which these are DNA experts, which most likely you and I are not, but if you are, great, Their DNA analysis confirmed in January 2020 that bats were actually the third most likely source. The two real origins were two snakes. All right, this is important. And then CNN actually published snakes could be the source of the Wuhan coronavirus. They even published this in January of 2020. Snakes, I'm reading in gray, snakes, the Chinese crate, the Chinese cobra may be the original source of the newly discovered coronavirus that has triggered an outbreak of a deadly infectious respiratory illness in China this winter. There's only one flaw in that statement. It was never a respiratory illness. All right, then SciTech Daily wrote snake pneumonia, coronavirus outbreak in China traced to snakes by genetic analysis. Now, I want to just hammer this home here. If you were raped, if your loved one was murdered or raped, and you had DNA tissue to have analyzed, you would trust a DNA expert to do the DNA analysis and then confirm who the culprit was. And the only person who's going to be able to tell you for sure where the murder and the rape came from would be a DNA expert. Now, you're looking at DNA experts for COVID, and they told us in January of 2020, snakes are the origin of COVID. Isn't that amazing how the mainstream media, governments around the world kept lying to you that it was bats? Then in France in April of 2020, this group took the spike proteins of COVID and they figured out that the spike proteins of COVID were identical to the things on the top of the screen. Cobra toxin, bungaro toxin, which are crate snake venom. At the bottom of the graph at the top, you'll see SARS-CoV-2S. That stands for SARS-CoV-2 spike protein. Then you'll see these three segments in the middle of the two snake neurotoxins, cobra toxin and bungaro toxin. You will see the references RABVG 3 times. That stands for rabies virus glycoprotein, the spike protein of rabies. All right, so let's take a look at this. King cobras, crate snakes. All right, and then they proposed nicotine as the cure. All right, time to get into this. When they found out that the spike proteins of COVID were identical to bungaro toxin, cobra toxin, and rabies virus glycoprotein, means a spike protein, I looked it up and I wanted to know, what do they know about rabies virus and its glycoprotein? All right, so this is what they published. Interaction between the rabies virus and nicotine receptors. A potential role in rabies virus-induced behavior modifications. Now, in this paper, let's see what it's dated. The date's not on that part. Okay, we'll keep going. Highlights of the study. Rabies virus's spike protein binds to nicotinic acetylcholine receptors, nicotine receptors. And check out what they publish. Nicotine and genetic deletion of the alpha-7 nicotine receptors modulates or stops pathological aggression. So if you have rabies, did you know nicotine stopped all rabies virus infection and disease? Modulate means to stop, cool down, remit. Pathological means disease creating, aggression. Did you know rabies can be cured with nicotine? That's interesting. What else do they know about rabies? Check this out. Rabies glycoprotein. I'm reading at the top. Rabies glycoprotein binds to nicotine receptors via a neurotoxin-like domain. Let's read this together. First paragraph. The rabies spike protein contains a neurotoxic-like region which shows a significant sequence homology with snake venom alpha neurotoxins that function as potent subtype selective antagonists. Now I'm going to tell you what that means in English. Rabies spike protein is identical to snake venom neurotoxins that bind to alpha-7 nicotine receptors. Then several lines of evidence have identified the alpha-1 nicotine subunit to contain this binding site, which overlaps the bungaro toxin site. Oh, really? So in this study, they were evaluating what does rabies bind to in bungaro toxin. Let's keep going. The rabies virus binding to the muscle type nicotine receptor was inhibited by nicotine antagonist up to 50% by bungaro toxin and 30% by something called tubocurarine. But binding was not affected by the muscarinic acetylcholine receptor antagonist atropine. We're going to keep going. Loop 2 of alpha bungaro toxin and cobra toxin have approximately 50% sequence homology to the rabies spike protein neurotoxin-like domain. Follow me here. The spike protein of rabies has a 50% identical gene makeup of 2 snakes' venoms. Interesting. This study showed that a peptide, a short protein of the rabies virus neurotoxin domain, is structurally similar to loop 2 of alpha neurotoxins from snakes. Well, that's interesting. Let's go to this document here. Antiviral activity of animal venom peptides. This is from 2017. It's in the top left-hand corner. This is antiviral activity of animal venom peptides and related compounds. I've taken my audiences through this. This is a review. Provides a panorama of peptides described from animal venoms that present antiviral activity. All right, so these psychos are now studying venoms to find out a cure for viruses, and that thereby reinforcing them as an important tool for the development of new therapeutic drugs. Yeah, we need venom-laced vaccines. Look at this first statement that I have highlighted in blue. Despite the harmful action mechanisms of animal venoms, like killing you, most of them have components holding potential medicinal properties to cure diseases. No, they don't. They're effing psychos. All right, let's look at this statement here under snake venoms being used for these vaccines for viruses in this document. The author suggests that this activity that they're referencing above may be related to the presence of some snake venom molecules that are homologous or identical to HIV-1's spike protein. Okay, so now the spike proteins of COVID are identical to snake venoms. Rabies virus is identical to snake venoms. All right, let's keep going. And I'm going to read through this real quickly. I've got a minute left in this segment. Then we're going to keep coming back because I have to hammer away at this reality of rabies, HIV, and COVID are all snake venom laced viruses, supposedly. All right, so the conclusions for this study read, as a consequence of the scarcity of new families of antiviral drugs, drug companies have strengthened their efforts to increase developments of known current drugs, resulting in little or even no improvement to their existing drugs. At the same time, the growing demand for new drugs and natural therapeutic products is a matter of extreme necessity to face the emergency of multi-resistant viral pathogens. Preventative and curative measures should always be in the hands of health authorities like Dr. Anthony Fauci to ensure control of epidemics, such as the recent Ebola virus in Africa or arboviruses, particularly in Brazil, represented by the dengue, chikungunya, and Zika viruses, or worldwide pandemics such as influenza and HIV. Therefore, prospection, screening. So prospection means to go looking for, screening, looking for, and all other phases of biological activity, validation, clinical development of animal venom peptides represents, they state, an essential scientific investment for protecting and perpetuating humankind. What I'm teaching you is all that I've learned in studying venoms related to COVID, and now the reality that not only are snake venoms a part of the COVID virus, snake venoms have been known to be a part of the HIV virus and the rabies virus this whole time. Did you know that? I didn't know that. But did you know that they believe animal venoms injected into people in the form of vaccines are an essential scientific investment? I'm reading from the screen in blue. An essential scientific investment for protecting and perpetuating humankind. Remember the old adage, an apple a day will keep the doctor away? Well, what they're wanting to tell you here is that all human beings on the planet, in order to protect them from viruses, they ought to be injected with animal venoms. And in this paper, it's anything from snake venoms, frog venoms, cone snail venoms in the ocean, marine sponges in the ocean, spider venoms, wasp venoms. It's all in this actual document. All right, we're going to have to go to commercial break. We'll be right back after these messages with more. Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Brian Ardis. Welcome back from the commercial break. This is the Dr. Ardis Show, and the sponsors for this segment are going to include KirkElliottPhD.com. I've gotten lots of wind that people are very concerned about finances and some really serious warnings that in the upcoming year there could be a lot of distractions and a lot of efforts to maybe destroy the value of your investment. So go to KirkElliottPhD.com. Tell them Dr. Ardis sent you for a free consultation like I've done multiple times with him. All right. And then the next segment, this segment's also being brought to you by GrowMaxWaterHydro.com. I have it in my backyard right now, and I use it to actually filter water before we give it to our plants. We have flower beds. We don't do gardening at this home, but we have lots of flower beds, and we invest a lot of money in flowers and plants, and we like the aesthetic view of that. And we want clean, healthy water to maximize the beauty of those plants. So if you're growing gardens, you have flower plots, please consider going to growmaxwaterhydro.com. Use my last name, Ardis, for a 10% off discount on any of the products they sell there to get chlorine, fluoride, venoms, plasmids out of your water, whatever they're trying to poison us with it. They're chemtrails, vaccines, water, you name it. Trying to get it out of us and out of our soil that we're feeding with the water we're giving them. All right. And then also h2bev.com. I actually, that's a drink called Hydro Shot. I had mine this morning. I hope all of you are using it because nitric oxide and hydrogen inside Hydro Shot drinks provides me with 8 hours of nitric oxide and energy and oxygen, which helps me focus and be able to continue to bring you relevant information around the world. And then that's h2bev.com. My last name, 10% off. Or the discount code doctor, maybe. That might work also. But I do know lots of people are using and taking advantage of that product. I use it every single day. So does my wife. We love it. All right. And then healingfortheages.com will be the last one. Use my last name, ARDIS, and save $50 off of the Healing for the Ages conference. You need that stuff. You need that information because I'm going to be building on that foundational information we gave you in that one. And we are going to be doing an entire new Healing for the Ages 2.0 in September of this coming year. It's already booked. We got the hotel booked, but everybody should have that information to build on. We're going to be going over at least 10 root causes of diseases in our next Healing for the Ages conference. So that is what we are going to be presenting. We have an exciting 2-day actual planning session coming up January in Arizona. And we're meeting with the whole group and team and our organizers. And I'm looking forward to getting with the docs and planning out what it is we are going to be presenting in September of 2024. So go to healingfortheages.com, sign up for our newsletter. It's free. We'll keep you updated when ticket sales go live for the event in September of 2024. And the first one was awesome. This is going to be better. Go to healingfortheages.com and purchase the actual presentation. Save $50 off with my last name, ARDIS. It's $199 total before you add my promo code. So if you haven't purchased it yet, please go get it. That was a lot of work, and I did it for you. All right, let's get back into our presentation here. We were talking about venoms being used and proposed as solutions and antidotes for antiviruses or viruses, which is ridiculous. So we're going to bring this up here. All right, so remember, they are proposing here in 2017 in this paper that venoms, we need to spend as much money and research developing venom-laced vaccines to prevent all viruses in the future, even to protect us from pandemics. Did you catch that word here in the statement above? Health officials need to have this info in hand so they can actually be ready for worldwide pandemics. Well, you just went through one. This was 3 years before that one. All right. These are some of the venoms they published. These are scorpion venoms. And you see in the very middle of this white chart, the virus they're telling you they have scorpion venom already patented for and approved to be vaccines for. For example, MEV is measles virus. The next one is SARS-CoV-1. That's a different scorpion. Then scorpion's venom also works for H5N1, another type of flu. The hepatitis B virus, HIV, hepatitis C virus, herpes simplex virus, the virus that causes cold sores. They have vaccines made from scorpion venom to cure cold sores, fever blisters. I don't think there's anybody on earth that has fever blisters because you're deficient in scorpion venom, but these people do. And then HIV and hepatitis C virus again. All right. Then they get into frogs. I mentioned frogs. Here's all your frog venoms and the viruses in the middle that they're for. They can use frog venom, poison dart frogs. They can use their venom to treat herpes simplex virus and HIV. See the multiple versions. Also insects here and their venoms to treat a herpes simplex virus, cold sores, HIV. And then what about ophidians? Ophidians are snakes. So these are different snakes that they already have patented vaccines for to treat HIV, dengue virus, and HIV and dengue virus. More HIV. Look at the left. This is the marine sponges. Did you know that AZT used to treat HIV, supposedly? Actually, the drug AZT killed and maimed millions of people around the world. They called AIDS. Marine sponges. They have marine sponge venom from creatures in the ocean that are now vaccines for HIV patients. Did you know that AZT is made from marine sponge venom and that marine sponge venom causes every single immune deficiency you see with AIDS? So as these people are taking AZT to prevent AIDS, they're actually creating the AIDS scenario with the venom of the marine sponge for the drug AZT. Now, remember, this is an entire presentation over World's AIDS Day, December 1st of this year and every December 1st of each year. All right, so I want you to look at this real closely. They stated in the May paper I showed in the previous part of this presentation that the HIV's spike protein is a part of the SARS-CoV-2 virus's spike proteins. They said it's homologous to HIV's spike protein. Homologous means similar or derived from. Well, COVID spike proteins were derived from snake venom neurotoxins. So if HIV spike protein is identical to that, then it's identical to snake venom. All right, so let's read along here. This is a paper from 2018. You can see it just under the names of the authors on the left, January 2018. It's called Nicotine Receptors in HIV and Possible Roles During HAND. That's an abbreviated scenario with HIV and inflammation. In blue, you will see this sentence. Let's read it together. In this review, a new perspective is addressed in the field of HIV, where the alpha-7 nicotine receptors is the protagonist. What is creating the problem is HIV binding to this alpha-7 nicotine receptor, just like COVID. All right, besides HIV and AIDS, infection results in a series of systemic physiological complications such as chronic inflammation, and an abbreviated scenario, HAND, which stands for, they show you, HIV-associated neurocognitive disorders, inability to think and control the brain's function of the rest of the body. Then they state here, the alpha-7 nicotine receptor is emerging as an important player in the HIV field since it's expressed not only in the brain, but also in a wide variety of immune cells that are targeted during HIV infection, such as macrophages, monocytes, B lymphocytes, and T lymphocytes. This is very important, y'all. Snake venom, which is the spike proteins of rabies, HIV, and COVID. They publish here that they target, these venoms do, their spike proteins, target the immune cells, such as macrophages, monocytes, B lymphocytes, and T lymphocytes. Those are the majority of your immune cells. And every one of those immune cells has alpha-7 nicotine receptors on it. And when the venoms get on them, it actually shuts off their function. And you'll see here the last statement is making it a suitable target for treatment development. So now they're saying we need to go look at alpha-7 nicotine receptors as a treatment for HIV. Studies performed by Brockie et al. Demonstrated a significant homology, similarity between a specific sequence of glycoprotein 120, the spike protein of HIV, and the putative active sites of snake neurotoxins. So they're telling you here, the HIV's spike protein has the exact same action as snake neurotoxins, which have the ability, they continue to bind irreversibly to nicotine receptors. Now, I just want to tell you, the binding irreversibly to nicotine receptors is a flat out lie. If it wasn't a lie, then when I had everybody chew nicotine gum or put on nicotine patches, they wouldn't have seen their symptoms disappear, because snake neurotoxins is what COVID was. So it is not irreversible. It's only irreversible if you don't use the antidote, which is nicotine. Furthermore, they continued, the authors demonstrated that recombinant spike protein 120 from HIV inhibits the binding of the nicotinic agonist alpha BGTX. That's alpha bungarotoxin. Holy crap. Here's another study where they're looking at bungarotoxin with HIV, just like the rabies virus and bungarotoxin and COVID's venom, or cobra's venom, like I just showed you, suggesting that other type of receptors can function as HIV receptors, and supports the notion that ion channels may have a role during HIV infection. I just want y'all to see they're doing studies looking at how does HIV's glycoprotein, which is identical to snake venom neurotoxins, how does it behave in the presence of bungarotoxin and cobra toxin, just like with the rabies study. All right, so I just want y'all to see that. The alpha-7 nicotine receptor, they tell you that it's antagonistic. It says there underneath the sentence in the middle, furthermore, the authors demonstrated that the spike protein of HIV inhibits the binding of the nicotinic acetylcholine receptor antagonist bungarotoxin. That means whatever snake venom's on HIV binds to those receptors more powerfully than bungarotoxin can release. All right. Now, in this study, they confirmed various venoms in COVID patients. All right, now, sorry, I just need to go back here. I wanted to show you that rabies has a connection to snake venom. HIV has a connection to snake venom. This is important, and they all target the same alpha-7 nicotine receptors. Alpha-7 nicotine receptors, the perfect antagonist that turns on those cells and removes venoms of all kinds, is nicotine. So I just need to hammer that home for you. All right, so I'm going to stop with that part of the presentation, and now I'm going to go to this actual article. Okay, now this is a study that in the late 1990s that actually was published at the University of Miami School of Medicine. The title of it reads Micronutrient Status in Relationship to Death is the word for mortality in HIV-1 disease. So what they're looking at is what nutrients and deficiencies may exist that is leading to worse outcomes, including death with HIV. All right, so this is important. Let's read through what they figured out here. So we're going to go along here. Let's read the first paragraph together. I won't highlight because it looks weird when I do it. Infection with the HIV virus, the hallmark of which is profound immune dysregulation, is estimated to affect 15 million people worldwide and continues to spread at an unabated pace. With aggressive multi-drug therapy and the recent advent of protease inhibitor administration, there's some optimism regarding the prospect of HIV suppression, helping to transform HIV infections from a fatal condition to a chronic, manageable viral infection. It's 1996. They're telling you we're looking at things and there's things progressing. We think that we can help people not die, but they're still going to have it. All right. Now, considerable interest, they continue, has been generated in the cofactors that may be involved in permitting HIV-infected individuals to remain asymptomatic for long periods of time, like Magic Johnson, or cause fewer opportunistic infections in those who are already symptomatic. There is evidence to indicate that altered nutritional status may influence the course of HIV disease progression and survival. What that says is we are seeing that there are certain nutritional deficiencies or adequacies, and then those nutritional numbers or totals of each nutrient impacts the outcome of the HIV patient as developing AIDS or dying. So there's a connection between HIV's worsening scenario and progression of disease and nutritional status. So let's continue. Although nutritional factors are not likely to be the most important etiological determinants, they may alter immune function to facilitate disease progression. They might also, these nutrients, influence viral expression, and these nutrients may have a significant impact upon disease processes and related morbidity, disease, and mortality, death. It has long been recognized that the infectious illness influences nutritional status, which in turn affects host susceptibility to infection. So they're telling you it's already well established that when a virus gets in the body, it can complete nutrition as a reaction to the virus, which can make you more susceptible to other infections in the future. The synergistic interactions between infection and nutritional status and your immunological function are particularly evident in AIDS patients who exhibit impaired immune function and altered nutritional status. Many of the immunological consequences, immune deficiency consequences associated with AIDS are similar to those found in protein energy malnutrition, which include decreased T lymphocyte and CD4 cells, reduced secretory immunoglobulin A, and impaired primary and secondary delayed cutaneous hypersensitivity responses, like touching your skin and having reactions and being able to feel it. We're going to continue at the bottom of this page. Micronutrient deficiencies. Micronutrients, not macros, little bitty nutrients, and their deficiencies are known to influence immune function, are prevalent even prior to the development of symptoms in HIV disease. This is important. Our research studies indicate that alterations in nutritional status are widespread among various HIV-infected patients. We're up here at the top, including asymptomatic homosexual men and women who abuse drugs in children. Shore, Prosner, and Baum was the researchers. Decreased plasma levels of zinc, selenium, vitamins B6, B12, vitamin A and E are evident and appear to be functionally relevant in maintaining the integrity of immune responses, including your peripheral blood lymphocyte response in your arms and legs, your peripheral blood's white blood cell response, your immune system's response, to the mitogens phytohemagglutinin and pokeweed and natural killer cell activity. Of particular importance, inadequate levels of these nutrients have been associated with faster disease progression and increased mortality. So if you're low in zinc, selenium, vitamin B6, B12, A, and E, you see worse outcomes of death for HIV patients and AIDS patients, while restoring of nutritional status has been associated with slowing of HIV's disease progression. Baum et al., 1995. Wow. How many of you knew that you could slow down the disease process or possibly reverse it, keep it from ever showing up? Now, we're going to go from here. You'll see here's the vitamins being referenced. We're going to keep going. I want to go to the summary here because I want to talk about something. The summary reads, selenium deficiency has been demonstrated to be a significant predictor of HIV-related death, independent of your immune cells, reactions, or blood tests. Did you hear that? Selenium deficiency has been demonstrated to be a significant predictor of HIV-related mortality. Although selenium deficiency in healthy humans is relatively rare, a number of studies have documented a decline in plasma selenium levels and decreased glutathione peroxidase activity in individuals with HIV and AIDS. In fact, we'll just keep going. These findings are a particular concern in light of selenium's influence on immune function, viral replication, and survival, as recent investigations indicate that supplementation with selenium may help to increase the enzymatic defense systems in HIV-infected patients. Further, studies to determine possible mechanisms and clinical trials to evaluate the effect of selenium supplementation on HIV disease progression are essential. Now, it's interesting. They were talking in the beginning of the actual article. Look at all these research studies on micronutrients and HIV. Anyway, I might want to study those. All right, so they told you up here that these different minerals show significant evidence to helping slow down the progression of death from HIV and AIDS. So they tell you at a bare minimum, anyone we know or love that's on or has been diagnosed with HIV, we should seek out giving them zinc, selenium, vitamin B6, B12, A, and E as evidence here. All right, so at a bare minimum, HIV patients will be on those. However, when you get to the conclusion, what they keep hammering on is only selenium. And I want to talk about why it is they're only talking about selenium. Selenium deficiency. Why do they keep hammering on selenium deficiency? Well, in the 1990s and 1995, the University of Georgia did a study. They took 200,000 HIV patients, and for 20 years, they followed them. It actually ended in 1995. They followed them for many, many years. If it wasn't 20 years, it was a long time, many years. And they only had them supplement one thing, selenium. They had them do 200 micrograms every single day, twice a day for HIV patients. And they wanted to track how many of them actually go into full-blown AIDS. The big number was 0 of any of the patients, and there were thousands of HIV patients in the study. 0 ever developed AIDS, which is awesome. If you look at Magic Johnson, he's totally healthy, businessman, never has developed AIDS. Guess what he's doing? He's doing a whole bunch of nutrition that includes those elements I just showed you that also include selenium. On World AIDS Day, what is it I recommend for all of you at home? The importance of selenium with your health and your immune system. I actually do not only recommend the 200 micrograms of selenium they gave you every single day in these HIV studies. Selenium can prevent you from developing AIDS. It can also help you to prevent and help you eliminate the HIV virus from your cells. That's what the study found. They found in the 1990s that when the virus, supposedly the virus, the HIV virus that has a snake venom neurotoxin on it, when it gets inside the cell of a human, that when that spike protein of snake venom binds to those receptors, it kicks out selenium for it to be able to get inside. And the depletion of selenium is leading to the autoimmune deficiency you hear it's being called AIDS. Selenium at 200 micrograms at a bare minimum, everybody at home should be doing it. I do it every single day. I've been doing it for decades. You should too, at a bare minimum. It's an incredible immune booster. I've already done another podcast here with a researcher out of Africa who specializes in selenium. And we discussed it there that you can take up to 1.2 milligrams of selenium, and everybody should if you have an immune deficiency issue or HIV or some of the retrovirus or any virus for that matter. And then at a bare minimum, let's go back up to the top here. I'll do this as a quick summary with these supplements here, starting with zinc. Zinc, you should be on at least 20 to 50 milligrams a day. Selenium, I recommend for HIV patients and anybody who's sick with long-term viruses, Epstein-Barr virus, chronic fatigue, you should be on 1.2 milligrams. That's 6 times the 200 microgram dose, 1.2 milligrams of selenium every single day. Vitamin B6 and vitamin B12. Vitamin B12, you want a methyl form, get methylcobalamin. That's the version you want. Should be a whole food version. Vitamin A, 200,000 international units every single day, up to 400,000 international units every single day. Nothing's actually better at beating the flu than vitamin A, just so you know, or the cold. And then vitamin E, you can get vitamin E in wheat germ oil in a capsule. They actually have gel cap, has the highest amount of vitamin E in the world in wheat germ oil. And everybody should be taking an adequate amount of vitamin E. Also, it helps boost the immune system and prevent HIV and AIDS. I just showed you this. All right, I'm out of time. I hope people with HIV get this information. They should. Scientists around the world are working on it on your behalf. I want to say God bless you to everyone. I want to say I hope you have a blessed holiday season. You should see me before then. But I hope your plans are working out great. I hope the health of your loved ones is stable. And I hope that friendships are being secured and the assembly they tried to prevent for the last 4 years of human beings. I hope y'all have let that go and made your homes open for the people that you love. I'm Dr. Brian Ardis. God bless you. We'll see you next week.
Disclaimer. Please note, the following presentation is solely for informational purposes and should not be seen as a replacement for advice provided by your physician. It is important not to rely on the information from this presentation for diagnosis, treatment, medication prescription, or any other form of medical care. Always consult with your physician or healthcare professionals before taking any medication, nutritional supplement, herbal remedy, homeopathic treatment, or pursuing any health-related procedure. If you have a medical condition or believe you might have one, promptly contact your healthcare provider. Do not disregard professional medical advice or delay seeking it based on this presentation's information as the products or services purchased from it do not establish a doctor-patient relationship between you and any affiliated physicians. Statements about dietary supplements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration and are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.